Hi, friends and yogis. Jenny Wise here from WiseMind Soul Warrior and Yoga Psychology School. And I have my beautiful friend, my dear friend, and also soul sister, Melissa Mong, on with us. She is also now a transformation mentor for us as well. So I'm super excited to have her on as a graduate and also as a transformation mentor. So let's talk a little bit about how you and I connected and how we know each other and how far back we go. And then we'll talk about the training.
Well, thank you, Jen.
How we reconnected too, because we reconnected in
Oh,
2020.
I think that is probably the most interesting part out of everything. But
Mm-hmm.
thank you very much for having me on today. I greatly appreciate it. And so Jenny and I met each other in college, not long ago, but long enough. And we were both looking for some money. So we were part of the Miss America pageant system.
Mm-hmm.
And you've got to pay for your education. You figure out any way that you can. And that was one way that really opened the door for both of us. So we kind of met there. I think that's when we connected and gelled.
Yes.
Um, and then time passes. And you often wonder about people and where they've landed and what
Mm-hmm.
they're doing. And there was something online with Wise Mind Yoga and Jenny, right? I think it was right the January that COVID hit.
Yes.
So it was before we had all that time.
Yes. It was before the quarantine. Yes.
And there was a course, and I was kind of in this flux space of my life where I was thinking, what can I do from a career that, to me, I left a couple years prior to that, uh, to improve and help myself internally. And I signed up for Jenny's course, and it just kind of snowballed from there. So
Mm-hmm.
I'm a student that didn't go bam, 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 it's all done. Mine has been a progression over what, two years, two and a half
Mm-hmm.
years. I mean, it's hard to tell. I think COVID, we all go a little blurry, but it's been a progression over those years. And I was able to work through the process of things that I was able to uncover.
Mm-hmm.
That makes sense.
It does make sense.
Because there are patterns I think that we all fall into, and sometimes
Mm-hmm.
we wonder why we're falling into these patterns, but it's through the techniques and assistance and helping, someone helping you develop to uncover those, that you go, oh, yeah, why didn't I figure that out? Because you, on your own, I think it's a lot more difficult. So Jenny's program was able to peel back the onion. But the most beautiful thing at the same time is that I have a young daughter, and at that age, she was needing some assistance and what Jenny calls as tools in your tool belt. Those tools in your tool belt, you're able to share with your children. You're able to share with loved ones. You're able to share with friends. And those
Mm-hmm.
tools that I was learning at my age, I was able to give my daughter at an early age, which means
Mm-hmm.
she's way ahead of the game. That she's 30 some years ahead of the game than what I was.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of our story and how we reconnected. And since then, it's just been studying the program and unfolding more of myself and knowing that there are a lot more people out there than just what's close to me and my tight knit that could truly benefit from the program that Jenny offers. It's amazing. It really is. It's dirty work sometimes. You've got to dig down deep. It's emotional, and I had some really dark nights, but I came out on the other side, which is really good. But I'm still learning.
Oh yeah. Healing is a lifelong journey, right? So there is a tremendous amount of healing and transformation that happens during the program that, you know, happened for me in my own programs, right? But there are still, right, every single day, right? There's work that we're going to end up doing, and we'll end up evolving, hopefully, and growing and healing and transforming for the rest of our life, right? So to me, you can kind of think of it as a jump start, the program
Mhm.
itself. There's a lot of healing and transformation. And we do go deep because we do mind, body, soul. We do heart work, we do body somatic work, we do rewiring the mind through meditation. So, from a healing perspective, it is holistic across all the areas. And that's why it's so powerful, because it is going across all the different areas. And we're using traditional neuroscience, we're using spiritual soul work, we're using kind of yoga psychology techniques. Um, and what you were talking about is like the shadow work and the soul work is what we do around the family of origin, and then looking at the samskara patterns and the patterns that we have that are not serving us anymore. And then once we identify those, then we can rewire the brain and do the soul work and the heart work and the somatic work to release all those so that we can start to rerun a new pattern, right? A new habit, a new way of thinking. Um, and I wanted to share a minute too, like you and I have talked about this before, looking back at, our 20-some-year-old self, um, like if I could talk to my 20-year-old self. So it's kind of similar to, you sharing some of the things you talked about with sharing with your daughter. I know for myself and for you and many of the women that have joined the program that they were doing the healing work not only for themselves, but just as much for their own family. And whether that was for a partner, for a husband, for their children, their grandchildren, right? Because the healing that we do right now affects future generations. It's not just our own mind, body, soul healing. It is future generations, and we're healing past generations actually as well by doing this work. So that's the amazing part, because we've got generational trauma, we've got childhood trauma, and we've got relationship trauma. Okay, so there's like three types of trauma, right? And we're healing it all at the same time. And we've got like our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents, trauma, and then we've got our own childhood stuff, and then we go into a relationship and we get relationship trauma and how that shows up, our biggest mirror and our biggest triggering opportunities and learning opportunities. But what
I
I'm Go ahead.
when you're talking about the words that you were saying made me think that how often, and this is just from my personal perspective, and also what I see is that especially for women, and men do the same too, but I think so more women, we kind of put ourselves aside to be able to nurture other things besides ourselves. And part of really digging down deep is allowing yourself truly to nurture what you need to
Mm-hmm.
be able to work yourself through.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we nurture as a mother, we nurture as a partner, we nurture as a daughter, we nurture as a sibling, whatever it may be, we nurture everyone else, but we forget to nurture ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So, therefore, from my personal perspective and my journey, is that I just kept on burying it deeper and deeper and deeper.
Mm-hmm.
And then once a month it would come up because everything does. It's your cleansing time.
Right.
But then we bury it deeper and deeper and deeper. And I did that for years
Mm-hmm.
until I started working with that intergenerational type of healing,
Right.
going back to an understanding, oh, this is why I do this.
Yep.
Oh, this is why I do this. But now that I recognize it, how can I work with it to heal it?
Right.
That's where I feel that you really came in with your programs to be able to hold my hand,
Mm-hmm.
whether it was a one on one or I was just working online with what was already pre recorded, which
Mm-hmm.
is really nice for me because I was able to take my time to really process and understand it and
Right.
then play it and go back.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me was the most helpful part.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, it's interesting too. I want to go back to two quick examples, and then I want to talk about kind of more specifics around some of the healing and transformation that you've seen. Um, but going back to the example with your daughter and things I've done with other moms, one of the examples, the exercises that comes up off the top of my head, which is really powerful for women, but also for tweens and teens and women in their 20s, is to ask yourself, do you treat yourself like your own best friend? Remember that exercise?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's one of the most popular ones that is a starting point for moms to be working with their daughters. And I remember this was 10 years ago, with cognitive behavioral change. The first time I ever heard this philosophy or this idea around treating yourself like your own best friend, because for years and years and years, this is, me kind of connecting this back to my 20-some-year-old and what it was like when we met at Miss Pennsylvania and Miss America stuff, is that, I was a perfectionist and I did not love myself. And I had no idea. I mean, I thought I had self-confidence, not in it's
Yeah.
never an ego way. There was never any ego for me, like, but it was more like I thought I loved myself. I thought I accepted myself. But meanwhile, it was just like me trying to get validation. Yes, it was for money. I mean, it was for scholarship, right? So there was a component of that. And somebody did approach me and come to me, right? And say, would you like to be part of this? Like, it wasn't, you know what I mean? Like, somebody came to me in a yoga class, actually, Melissa. I don't know if you remember, but I used to teach step aerobics,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
Step aerobics. That was one of my coping mechanisms all through college was exercise, which is one of the reasons why I have the experience I do to teach yoga, because I used to teach group fitness and step aerobics way in the day. So one of the pageant folks came to my class and said, have you ever thought about, doing pageants? And I was like, no, I never crossed my mind. And she's like, well, you can get scholarship money and there's a talent portion. And I was like, well, I can sing. So I could sing. But the one thing that it did do is it did give me self-confidence, and that it did help me with my communication skills and my ability to get up in
Oh,
front of
yeah.
people.
Oh,
So in
yeah.
that regard, that was very beneficial. And obviously the relationships and the friendships that I made there, the community for the women that I did connect with was a great experience. But I just want to take that like snapshot for a minute. I wish I had a picture. I'm gonna have to dig out an old picture, by the way, and post it of us, Melissa. I have a picture of us like standing on the stage dancing. I have one somewhere. My mom has kept it.
Oh.
Up in a twist, like, and we're doing our dance, and like just thinking about like if you could tell your 20-some-year-old, right, what you know now. Do you know what I'm saying? Like if I could
Oh,
just go to that girl and say,
yeah.
here's the things I took me into my 40s to figure out, my life would have been so different. And I've told this story so many times, and I've mentored women in their 20s and 30s and told them this exact same thing. Like this, what I'm telling you right now, I'm trying to save you 20 years. Like these things I had to learn the hard way to figure out, what is going on with all these different patterns that I have.
But
So,
the beautiful thing is that even the latter part of your years of life, you can still heal
mhm,
what has happened in the past,
absolutely.
even if it's yesterday or from this morning.
Absolutely.
So to me, the most important thing is how can I share to pass
Mhm.
on that mentorship that was given to me as a gift? Does that make sense?
Oh, absolutely. And it
So
doesn't matter if you're 40, 50, 60, you can be in your 70s and do this work, right? So there's no time limit so I just want to put that out there too.
yeah, there definitely is not a time limit because I found that later, but sharing what you've been through and noticing the process of how the science comes together with the intuitiveness and the sacredness of what you teach can be how that can be utilized and shared with even my daughter Maya, who was not even a teenager yet at that time,
Mhm.
is mind blowing and amazing.
Mhm.
It really is.
It is.
It's what you teach and what you've taught me. How can I mentor to help someone else along the path?
Mhm.
Because it's eventually, it's, you ever hear the concept of there's a bunch of monkeys that are on an island and they start washing their fruit, and miles and hundreds of miles away there's another island with monkeys, and all of a sudden they start washing their fruit. So it's how can we share, how can we learn, how can we go through the process with your platform's amazing, with Wise Mind Yoga, and how can we take all of that, those years of study, those years of clearing out the cobwebs that have been yucky inside of us, and how can we share that with others?
Mhm.
Because
Absolutely.
I think, as if we just talk about women, and there are some men too, I mean, there's a collection of both men and women. Some of us are really truly are caregivers and sharers. But if we can become healthy within ourselves, we're able to give so much more to other people. I'm able to give more to my friends, my daughter, my parents. I'm able to give more to my community because
Mhm.
I was able to heal what was inside of me that
Mhm.
caused me pain, caused me sorrow, depression. You talk about being perfect. I always thought everything had to be perfect. And if there was a misspelled word on something, I panicked because it wasn't right. They're going to think I'm horrible. But that, was not how I was taught, but how I came about through society, working within my career, thinking everything needed to be perfect. And it
Mhm.
doesn't. So those are the things that I was able to work through. Just one of the things, a process with you, is my perfectionism. And now I'm like, no one's perfect. I'm not perfect.
Mhm.
It's okay to make a mistake. If you're putting a PowerPoint together and there's something not right on, it's okay. It's okay. But at one point in my life, I didn't think it was.
Girl, I
Yeah.
think that's one of the many things that we have in common is recovering perfectionist and recovering workaholic.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And I still every single day have to keep that in check because I
Mm-hmm.
know that those are patterns for me. And so even if it's something like yoga psychology that I love, that like if I won, I talk about this, like if I won the lottery tomorrow, I still would be doing this. I still would teach what I would teach. I'd probably go get my PhD in psychology, but the point being, I love what I do.
Mm-hmm.
And I would probably create some kind of like nonprofit or ministry or something that, because I would have obviously a lot more funds to, you know what I mean? But I have found what is my calling, if that makes sense. Like
Oh,
I
totally.
yeah,
Totally.
I feel like I'm on the right path. This is what I'm supposed to be doing. As difficult as it has been to go online in the middle of COVID, I still feel like I'm on the right path for what I'm supposed to be doing. Um,
Most definitely, Jenny. Most definitely.
yeah,
The world needs the world needs more people to be able to share openly, to help them through the process of everyday life that internally that's difficult for them.
right.
And that's where I was 2.5 or how many years ago it was with COVID. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. Well, COVID opened up a lot of stuff for things, right? It was like this Pandora's box of people, we call it collective trauma, right? We were all living and still are, but it was much worse in 2020 and 21, where it's this collective trauma that we all been living in. And I'm probably pretty sure a lot of us have post traumatic stress from it, actually. That's a whole nother thing. And so a lot of us had this like underlying trauma that had not been resolved or underlying anxiety or whatever the thing was. And then here comes COVID and it's like the lid is popped off of that. And, people are drinking more, people are taking more medication, like whatever it is, people are like, 911, I have to sit with myself now, like, especially the people that were going into the office and then they got stuck home in quarantine and they're home with their kids and their husband or their wives. And it's just like my normal distractions that I have to not deal with my stuff is not there. You know what I'm
Right.
saying? So that's part of what happened is like people were forced to look at their stuff, if that makes sense, or
Yeah.
they were forced to use different coping mechanisms that may not have been healthy to be able to get through that, right? So it might have been alcohol or whatever the thing was. It might have been over shopping on Amazon or overworking or whatever the thing was. They did what they needed to do to get through that period, like we all did. I can
And
have,
I
go ahead.
that period, I think for a lot of people and even myself really highlighted what wasn't healed. You
Mhm,
know, it really did. I mean,
mhm,
when there's things internally that are not healed that you bury, they tend to come up and you start to utilize things to cope with them. And
mhm,
I think during that time when you were able to sit with yourself, you were able to, A, you were able to really listen to what your needs were, or
mhm,
B, you tried to cover up what you were feeling. And that's why I'm thankful that I started the program in January, right before everything kind of hit, because it gave me a focus and it gave me that quiet time to be able to really do the internal work,
mhm.
as ugly as it was sometimes. But
Right.
I mean, but now is even anytime's a great time. So now's even a perfect time
Mhm.
to be able to sit down with yourself, walk yourself through the program, learn. It's a good time.
Right. And you're never 100% ready. So being 100%
Oh,
ready,
no.
your ego is going to tell you, your ego is going to resist, and your brain's going to tell you, we're good just where we are because we're in our comfort zone. And even if it's not healthy and the patterns that you're doing are, I'm good in my perfectionism, right? And your brain just says, we're going to keep going in our perfectionism. We're not going to change. Um, But then the other piece too is I did want to mention, and then I want to get into talking about more about your specific healing in the program through WiseMind Soul Warrior, and then also the consultation calls. But
Hmm.
before I get into that, I wanted to kind of make this connection with your healing journey and what it looked like for you as far as, well, let's just go into the healing part. So, the healing and transformation piece, like, so when you went deeper into the work and you went deeper into the program, doing the yoga classes, doing the sadhana guided meditations and the breath works and the singing and the chanting and the family of origin work and the psychology of the chakras and all the things that we get into, the koshas, the self discovery process. What was that like for you? And what were some specific things that you noticed that you changed during that time of the program within those 6 months? And then what are some patterns that you found that changed? And it might have been, finding yourself being more calm or
Hmm.
less reactive, or, maybe your perfectionism even took another dial down during that time. So,
I the program, you were mentioning several of them. So there's several avenues because not everyone's going to find their way through one path. So
mhm,
you're able to, by experiencing several different ways to be able to heal, you're able to find what really works best for you.
mhm,
And my number one was meditation. That that time where you sit with yourself, you're able to center yourself within the true, to me, the true being of who you are internally. And then you're
mhm,
able to pull yourself out and you're able to watch yourself from an outside perspective, knowing I am not my mind. I am not my body. I'm not my feet. I'm not my legs. I am not my organs. I am this spark of internal light that's able to watch and observe.
mhm,
So, through that watching and observing, you're able to see when a pattern comes up or something triggers you, you're able to say, ah, I recognize it.
mhm,
And you're able to remove yourself from it.
mhm,
So, therefore, that anxiety level that you before would have that would go start to rise. that anxiety level kind of stays down here. It doesn't have the opportunity.
Mm-hmm.
And fear is another thing for me. That was another thing that I dealt with. Fear of not having enough, fear of not accomplishing something, fear of not being good enough. So I was able to really, by observing, being able to really focus, recognize when that started to come up. Because it's like it's down deep and it bubbles up, and you're able to say, no, that's not who I am. That's not right.
Mm-hmm.
So it kind of dissipates.
Mm-hmm.
So that was helpful. Yoga, I've done yoga for several years. It's a great way and a form of movement meditation for me. But just sitting with myself, to me, that was the main artery to my
Mm-hmm.
healing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny because even today, if something starts to happen and I get a little frazzled and you're like, oh, I'm able to say, I just need to sit. I just need to sit. And
Mm-hmm.
what I mean is, I need to sit with myself. I just need to focus on my breath. And I just need to allow whatever that is starting to want to take over my life, just allow it to kind of dissipate
Mm-hmm.
off into the air. So that is, like I said, there's several different avenues, which
Mm-hmm.
is beautiful because then you get to find your own way through those avenues.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I love that, Melissa, because that's such a key teaching with Wise Mind Yoga is we are giving you the tools,
Mm-hmm.
but ultimately you are your best teacher. You are
Yeah.
your best teacher, you are your best therapist, you are your best coach. We're simply here as a guide and a mentor to give you all the tools to be able to shape shift the patterns, right? So in the program we're actually shifting the psyche, we're rewiring the brain, we're healing the heart and the body, but at the same time it's also meant as a launching pad for the rest of your life to figure out what does work for me, and also being able to pay attention that depending on the day, the month, the week, the year, your age, the things change on a daily basis, mentally, emotionally, physically, spiritually, of what is it do I need right now, right? Do I need to do a powerful vinyasa flow, or do I need to go outside and walk in nature and then go sit, which is a lot of what I did during COVID, is I would go for 3 or 5 days a week, sometimes more, 7 days a week. I would walk outside in the sunshine for, 3, 4 miles. I would sit and meditate anywhere from 15 to 30 minutes. And that was one of my go tos. If it wasn't that, then I was doing some type of yoga, prayer, meditation, singing. And I would go back and forth based on what my mind and body needed. And so that's a huge part of Wise Mind Yoga is you ultimately, this is meant to be a launching pad for you to figure out and pay attention, mind, body, breath, soul. What does my body and mind and my soul need right now? What does it need today? What does it need this morning? What does it need this week? And to really start to tune in, like you said, to pay attention to yourself
Mm-hmm.
rather than suppressing it. You're very much in tune. And I'm getting goosebumps talking about this because the more you get in tune, mind, body, breath, because you're going to just get more and more in tune, more and more self-aware, more and more, your energy, when something's off, you're going to just get more and more deeply in tuned. Um, then you're like, oh, well, look at that. Like I'm starting to go in fight or flight, or, oh, my breath's like, I'm getting a shallow breath. I feel like I might be getting a little bit of anxiety, or something's feeling
Yeah.
off in my gut because my stomach is tightening. And you'll be able to start to listen to all the cues that your body is telling you, the body sensations.
I'll totally agree. Totally agree.
And I know you have seen that, but I just want to share that with everybody else, also for your journey and everybody else, that this is meant. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, it's a quick start launching pad as far as healing and transformation goes, but it's also meant to give you life skills. It's beyond
Those
just, yeah.
those those skills are part of your tool belt.
Mhm.
Yeah, this invisible belt around your waist. can be as lavishly, as pretty as you want, or it can just be plain. But you're able to pull them out and utilize them.
Yeah.
And you start to become connected and you know exactly what is needed.
I
And
love that. I love that, Melissa. That idea of an invisible tool belt. It could be like it can be like all blinged up. You know, I don't know if your daughter went through that period where everything was like blinged. Okay,
no, no.
my daughter did, and she would like I forget what the stuff's called where you do like the fake gems. There's like a name for that. But anyway, it made me think of that from like the hot pink or gemmed up, you know, glittery glam to like a very plain tool belt, you know.
Wasn't that in the 90s, like the early 90s? Wasn't there some kind of like,
Yeah, there was. I know what you're talking about. I can't think of what it's called. I know exactly what you're talking about.
no, my tool belt has flowers and vines and it's directly from the dirt.
Yours is very earthy and hippie, right?
Yes, it's very.
Very hippie yogi. Um, Okay, so let's talk a minute about anything else you want to share, like any other patterns or anything you want to share before we go on to the consult call.
No, I think that we really, I think what I've recognized, I think in the beginning when you first start it, you're like, oh, I identify with that pattern. Oh, I identify with that pattern. I identify with that pattern. But as you go through the process, you realize that those patterns that you thought that you identified with really came from maybe one or two or three really strong ones that had a hold on you.
Mm-hmm.
And that is another thing of uncovering. Like you start on the surface and you're like, oh yes, 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 yes. And the more you dig, you're like, oh no, that's related to that pattern. Then you go down a little further and you're like, oh, it's almost like the taproot. And you get down to the bottom and you're like, oh. So by healing, not to be overwhelmed and thinking you need to heal several things, but as you go through the process, you'll find that there are a few spots of things that you do need to hear. Fear, perfectionism was mine. I
So
think
let's
those were the top two. Those were the top two.
we are in perfectionism. Yeah. So it's interesting that you say that because definitely fear and perfectionism are one of mine also. But when you look at like the underlying limited belief or story or, you know, core value, core belief that kind of runs underneath of that, it's usually I'm not worthy or I'm not enough.
Yeah, that was part of.
Mm-hmm. So like if I'm not, I know I'm getting goosebumps again, Melissa. You know how this happens to me. And I buy guys out there, you hear this, this is real. I don't just say I get goosebumps, I get goosebumps. Okay. Um, so now I lost my train of thought. I'm so excited.
Not being worthy.
Not being worthy. Okay. So with the belief, the core belief of I'm not worthy.
Mm-hmm.
So you've got the perfectionism, right? So that I'm going to prove my worth. I'm going to be perfect enough. I'm going to be good enough. I'm gonna do it through like proving through what I do, right? So I'm gonna look good enough, like to the outside world, right? Like I'm perfect to the outside world. I am gonna do enough. I'm gonna like excel in my career and all this other stuff because I've got to prove that I'm worthy.
Yep.
The way I show up in a relationship, the things that I tolerate in a relationship now are very different than what they were 20 years ago.
Oh,
I know
totally.
my worth now. Okay. So the
Mm-hmm.
point being that this leaks into all areas of your life, of that, like you were saying, the core, right? The core belief, and then all these other things, right? Like you just said, root out of it. So the fear, for example, of being abandoned, the fear of being rejected, the fear of being betrayed, because I'm not worthy. And so I have all these fears
Yep.
of you're going to abandon me and you're going to, right? Because I don't deserve the love. I don't deserve to be treated well because I'm not worthy. But when you heal, like you said, that root cause of like truly that core belief of I am worthy. And I don't have to prove my worth to anyone, to my partner, my husband, my students, my daughter, like nobody. I don't have to prove my worth to anyone because it's already innately there. And I mean, what I believe strongly is like my worth comes from God and from the divine. And, that's kind of where I'm at. But it's taken me now in my 50s to figure that out, to be like, nothing outside myself except for God and the divine determines my worth.
And that's and a thing I think to also point out is that's not a selfish act, because that's one thing that I feel that was also part of I don't want to be selfish, but that is not a selfish act. That is just realizing that this journey here on this plane, on this planet, is your journey. Just because you were taught that you have to be kind to everyone so they can be kind back to you is not how the world functions. Be kind. Don't expect to be kind back. When you're taking care of yourself, don't feel like you're neglecting other people, because you're not. You're giving more of the true self of who you are to them by taking care of yourself and working on
Right.
yourself.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And that was one of the many lessons I had to learn too, that, self-care isn't selfish.
No.
Be able to set boundaries, because again, that also took me well into my 40s to even start practicing setting a boundary, what that was.
Yeah.
And people pleasing was another huge one for me. So that's what I mean. The list goes on. And people pleasing comes from the am I worthy and rejection abandonment wounds, that if I can make this other person happy, then I'm happy, right? And my happiness depends on the other person being happy, versus I'm also recovering people pleaser. So when you move away from the people pleaser, that you love yourself and you radically accept yourself, then that person, how they treat you or don't treat you, or however, whatever they say to you or don't say to you, again, your self-worth is not based on that.
Right.
Because if you love yourself enough, like, for example, we talk about the 5 love languages was one of the many things we talk about for self-discovery. And part of that is, how do you show up in a relationship? How do you need to be loved when you are in a relationship? Or how do you love yourself? Well, one of them is words of affirmation. And for many years, I felt like I needed my words of affirmation from outside myself. Well, another way that you can do that is play a podcast, listen to stuff on YouTube, listen to sermons, listen to whatever it is, and you can get your inspiration and your words of affirmation, encouragement coming at you that way. It doesn't have to be from a partner, from a husband, from your parents, your friends or whatever. You can get those needs met other ways. So that's another thing that we talk about in the training. It's called reparenting. How do you learn to parent yourself and meet your own emotional needs? And that doesn't mean to say that there's not certain needs. Right? We all have to feel connection and community. So I'm not saying, right, as humans, we need connection and community, and we need relationships. So I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is being cognizant and self-aware of the level of your own happiness that you're putting on somebody else. And you're also giving your power away, by the way, when you do that too.
And truly, that's not fair. That's not fair to the other person to expect them to produce what you think that you need to be happy.
That's correct. You are 100% on that too.
It's not fair.
Right. Absolutely. And we talk about relationships in module 4, by the way. One of the things we talk about is conscious communication, and also living in service in your relationship. So bringing yoga into your relationship, so that how can I serve or be in service of the other person instead of what's in it for me, right? Which oftentimes we come into a relationship thinking, well, what can this other person give me, instead of how can I serve this other person? And we also talk about trauma and relationships too, which could be a whole program on trauma and relationships. But anyway, so let's talk about the consult call. So if you want to share with students out there because you and I did a consult call way back in 2020 when you and I got on a call. And even though we were friends and we still are friends, is I was with you as a consultant, right? As a yoga teacher, as a coach. And I just did what I normally would do with any other students. So share with folks what that was like and what it's going to be like to get on a call with me.
So I think sometimes it's really difficult to talk to someone that you already know about the personal crap that you're dealing with.
Mm-hmm.
For me, it was embarrassing. I've been that person my whole life that I'm the duck on the pond that's just kind of floating along, but underneath my legs are like moving like crazy. So those are the those are the things you don't want people to see. You want them to see, hey, yeah, it's great, life's great, yeah. Meanwhile, you're falling apart and your feet are getting tired. So it is a vulnerability, and I totally get that. It's a vulnerability.
Mm-hmm.
But Jenny, there was a comfort level with you because I didn't feel like you were judging me. And I think a lot of times in life, there's a feeling, at least for me, early on, people are judging me.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't, it's not a good feeling to be judged, but that feeling never came from you in your consultation. You know, it was you listened, you acknowledged, you, it's not, what you do is not something that you're like out of the blue. You're like, I think I'm going to do this. This is your life experience that you've been able to fold into healing to be able to help other people. So the consultation was easy, helpful. It gave me a direction on where I needed to go because sometimes when you're stuck in this pattern, I mean, it was for 40 some years, I was stuck in this pattern. I mean, I don't know what to do. Have I had therapy? Oh yeah, I've had therapy, but no one ever explained to me to combine the intergenerational healing, the science of it, especially that neuroscience to me is so important. And there's even more things that are coming out today in the news that they're connecting things together with meditation and how it affects the brain. It amazes me.
Mm-hmm.
There are all these different avenues that you're able to share and walk you through. And then you get a clear picture of, oh, so this is a path to my healing. This is where I start. And this is where I'm going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what the program it did for me. And that's what I believe it does for many people and
Mm-hmm.
will do for many people is that it gives you that path that you can follow.
Mm-hmm.
You're working with you one-on-one, or if you're talking to someone like myself that I'm with WiseMind, or you're sitting in front of your computer and you're going through each module and you're understanding it and you're able to add that to your life. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
it's a process.
Mm-hmm. Well, I really appreciate you saying that, Melissa. First of all, let me just say with you that duck analogy makes me laugh because you always do seem very cool and calm and collected. And it's interesting. You would be surprised, Melissa, how many people have that same thing happening where they might seem cool and collected and together on the outside, but on the inside, they're a hot mess or they're dealing with anxiety. Because I can tell you for me in the past, that was me. Like if you would have looked at my 20-year-old self, I looked like I had it all together, but I didn't know that I was a hot mess. I didn't know that I had the things that I needed to heal. I had no idea. First of all, I didn't know what self-awareness was. Second of all, I didn't even know what trauma was. I mean, I had gone to therapy, but I was very baby in the journey at that point. I mean,
Well, there are things that you're not taught.
mm-hmm.
I mean, think about it. When I had Maya, my daughter,
Mm-hmm.
I had no book. I could only teach her what I knew and what I was taught. And
Mm-hmm.
until you learn something new, especially this type of material to be able to work through the process of healing yourself,
Mm-hmm.
then you're able to help assist your children. So
Mhm.
we, not unless you have someone in your life that's able to share this kind of work with you and help you along the journey, you don't know it.
Right.
You're not taught that.
Mhm.
And I think about you and I, we grew up in Western PA. They're hardworking people up there. And this is how life goes. And this is how you do it.
Mhm.
This is how it's worked from generation to generation. And until you learn something new that you can add it to and adapt it to what your true need is to heal, just not yourself, but your past, to heal your future, the pattern continues
Mhm.
because that's what we're taught. Not that it makes it wrong or right. We teach what we know.
Right. Well, it's interesting too, Melissa. I did want to thank you for saying that you felt like I created a safe space and that you didn't feel judged. And I can tell you that's years and years at this point of the work that I've done to myself to not judge myself, which is it was what allows me to do the non-judgment now with students.
Mm-hmm.
Because I can tell you, I mean, this is like 10 years of work, right? But I mean, I had a loud inner critic voice, girl. I mean, like constant self-sabotage, constantly beating myself, constant guilt and shame,
Mm-hmm.
constant judgment. I mean, over and over and over again. I mean, that's one of the terms for it is self-beat, self-sabotage. Um, any chance I got. I mean, it could be I didn't eat healthy, I didn't exercise enough, I didn't study enough, whatever it was, nothing was ever enough, right? I mean, that's the conversations I had in my mind all day long. And so there was a lot of a lot of thought patterns that I had to rewire. And one of them was being gentle with myself, being kind to myself, being compassionate to myself, radically loving and accepting myself, not judging myself. And so, because I've been able to change all those things, and as other students, including you, change those things within yourself, and you continue to unconditionally love, radically accept, have real love and compassion and non judgment for yourself, which is also a mindfulness principle, by the way, then you can give that back to other people. Does that make
Jen,
sense?
you just reminded me of something of when I was younger. I always tried to journal. Journaling has always been a struggle. It's not my path to uncover and to heal. I found that other things are, but I remember it's probably maybe 19, 20, 21, 17. I remember writing in a book how I must have been trying to do something and how bad I sucked at it. And you're horrible. And yeah, what a memory that you just brought up by talking about yourself. And that's part of, to me, I look at it and I see that perfectionism, looking for that perfect, to be able to do it a perfect way. And then being angry at yourself for not doing it and reminding yourself that you're not worthy.
Mhm.
Yeah. I don't know whether to say thank you or.
Well, girl, I can tell you, I've talked about this before. First of all, I wouldn't be on a live like this if I would have done the work that I've done. Okay. Second of all, I wouldn't be able to tell my story without crying. And third of all, I would have procrastinated because you've heard me say this before. Perfect action is better than imperfect procrastination. So part of what perfectionism does, especially if you own your own business, is it creates procrastination, right? Because it's like, well, if it's not perfect, then I'm just not going to do anything.
Oh,
So
yeah.
one of the biggest lessons of me owning my own business since 2016 has been to let go of my perfectionism so I can get stuff done.
Mm-hmm.
Because if I still held on to my perfectionism, I wouldn't have been able to get stuff done. And it's like, I am going to do the very best job that I can do right now. And I may not have everything figured out, but I've got 80% of it figured out and I've got to take action. right? So that's, again, that's one of the biggest gifts that I've had with being a business owner and entrepreneur is I've been forced to have to change my patterns,
Yeah.
because perfectionism, when I was in the corporate world, or workaholic, or all these other patterns, those were applauded, right?
Oh, yeah.
Were
Yeah.
applauded, okay? But I could not continue to grow my business and be a perfectionist the way I was. It was just not possible. I couldn't do it. Um, so yeah, so there's that. So for any entrepreneurs out there, or business owners out there, or someone who's thinking about starting a business, I'm throwing this out there that if you have perfectionism, if you have the imposter syndrome of who do you think you are,
Hmm.
also if you have the taskmaster, which is the workaholic, the overachiever, the high achiever, you have to be careful of all those things, because when you're in something that you love to do, you can be even more potential harm of burning yourself out,
Yeah.
because you're in something that you believe in. And for somebody like me who's super passionate, I have to just make sure I'm, not getting too, not giving too much of myself, because the shadow of the heart chakra is overgiving.
Yeah.
So that's the part I have to be careful of, that I'm not giving too much of my heart, because that is who I am, is loving and caring and empathetic, and because I'm an empath, right? So I have to just make sure I keep that balance. And I've gotten a lot better over the years at doing that. Because if I get myself out of balance and I'm burned out, I can't help anybody, right?
Exactly.
I can't help anyone that way. Um, okay, so one last thing, girl. So if somebody came to you and they were like, I'm thinking about doing the Wise Mind Yoga program, what would you tell that student?
Tell them to do it. Don't question. Don't question. If you're thinking about it, you need it. If
Mm-hmm.
it's in the back of your head, you need it. And it, it's something that the past 2.5 years has carried me. So it's a good thing. It's a good thing.
Yeah, and that, like I said earlier, you're never 100% ready. And
No.
if you listen to your ego, it's going to talk you out of it. In fact, speaking of fear, interesting. I had a conversation with a student yesterday, a consultation, and I told her that my intention word for 2000, my Sankopa, my vow to myself is fearless. And so last year it was arise, this year it's fearless. And one of the things I'm in the process of doing right now is I'm using fearless as an acronym. And then with each letter, I'm coming up with a word. So, like, the F is going to be faith, the E is going to be excavate, the A is going to be arise. I'm still figuring out the R. I've got a few different: renew, restore. I'm still figuring that out. Revive, L for love. E, I think I was still figuring out, and then soul scar is the bottom two. But she was talking about her fear, and that she's ready to let go of her fear. And so I had a whole conversation with her about, when the fear monger comes up, when the inner critic comes up tomorrow and tries to talk you out of this, you know, she practiced her words of what she was going to say to that inner critic and to the fear that pops up. So I just want to put that out there, that is completely normal, and your ego and your brain and your is going to resist.
Yeah.
Resistance is a psychology term, and it's going to resist. And even when you get in the program, you're still going to get resistance. When you try to create a meditation practice, you're going to get resistance. So you have to be prepared for that, to work through the resistance so that you actually can make change. Because there is no change without discomfort. You have to, and that's part of what yoga psychology helps you do, is to be comfortable in the discomfort. And that also is what helps you when you get stressed or when there's chaos happening, so that you can stay calm in the chaos and you can stay from a place of peace, and you're not going into fight or flight all the time.
Yeah. That'll wear you out.
Yeah.
It's there for way too long.
Yeah. So I did want to mention one last thing, and I'm going to let you go, girl, is the program that Melissa was mentioning. from 2020, we do offer a self-paced option. And so I want to make sure I mention that to people. So if you're not ready for the full-blown program that has, group coaching and private Facebook group and all the things, there is an option for you to do it self-paced. So you could still go through the exercises, get the yoga, get all the stuff. If that's another option for you. So I just want to throw that out there. So if you are thinking about doing a consultation, don't hesitate to do that. And the last thing is if you are interested in becoming a yoga teacher and getting the certification, or you want to go through the full-blown program, we work all different types of payment plans. We also recently just brought on a financial company that also you can take out a loan and do payment plans through them. So there'll be stuff that WiseMind Yoga will support. And then you also have a second option with a financial partner that we have now. So I wanted to bring that up because we had people that, they may not want to use a credit card, but we've actually had people that have gotten loans, or maybe they paid for part of it and then gotten a loan for the rest. So I just want to mention that as well, that when there's a will, there's a way. And the financial piece, you'll be able to figure that out. And I had to figure it out when I did my own training. So the point is,
and I had to figure it out.
Everyone who's gone through any kind of training, right? That doesn't just go for our training, but any training, or going back to school or doing coaching or whatever it is, you'll figure that part out. The financial piece, we'll figure that out. There's plenty of different payment plans and different things that we can work through with you, because we're here to want to support you. Okay, so we try to make that as easy as possible as we can financially. And because we are a smaller company, we have the flexibility to be able to do that. So I have come up with a lot of different customized things if I have to for people as best that I can. So just know that there's a lot of people that have gone through the program that if I wouldn't have come up with those plans, they probably wouldn't have been able to afford it in their budget if I wouldn't have. So I just want to throw that out there. Okay.
Well, thank you, Jenny, because I think that's really important for people to understand.
Yeah. Okay, lady. Well, thank you so much. I'm so grateful for you taking the time. I know you're super busy and you have to get off to take your daughter to dance. So I really appreciate you being on with me. And I'm so honored and I'm so grateful to have you in my life, really, as a soul sister, as a friend, as now one of our transformation mentors. Like I am so grateful for you, really. And I mean that from the bottom of my heart, that I have you as somebody that I can go to and somebody in my inner circle, somebody that I trust and I know has my back 100%. And I'm just so grateful for you. I really am. So
Jenny, thank you. I'm very grateful for you too. And to be part of a group of people that are making a change in other people's lives, because my life was changed. And it's time for me to be able to share that so someone else can assist in someone else's life change along with their self.
Namaste. And I can't wait to see how you're going to do that, girl, because I know you're going to take your story out the same way I have. So I'm excited to watch how you do that. And I'm happy to help you with that. Okay.
Thank you.
So we're sending so much love and light, and we will see you all soon. Thank you. We'll see ya. Bye.